Good evening, you're watching Estuary TV News. Coming up, new student accommodation at Hull University. We see how the money has been spent. Richard Morris will be here to round up the winners and losers in the local elections last week. And I'll be talking to Jackie Kirkby, veterinarian nurse at Grimsby's Blue Cross. Welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Riches. First of all, it's over to Erica Barker for the news headlines.
Hello, the headlines today. 2 people have been pulled to safety after their vessel began to take in water and also suffered engine failure between Skegness and the River Humber. Lifeboats located them this morning and Humberside's Coast Guard rescue helicopter was called in. Both men escaped without injury. The vessel is now being towed back to Grimsby by the Humber lifeboat. A groundbreaking ceremony has taken place at Hull University. It marked the start of works on a new student accommodation, with £30 million being ploughed into the new block of flats, able to house over 500 students. It's hoped the investments will also benefit the wider area.
It's a very interesting shape, and the apartments inside are very state of the art, but from the outside it's a very traditional brick building, so it's a traditional build for us. £30 million is an enormous investment in student housing, and of course the way the university have chosen to do it with ourselves, it helps that capital investment circulate around the local economy.
Humberside police say they're out in force in an attempt to clamp down on the number of motorists using their mobile phones whilst behind the wheel of a vehicle. As part of a month-long enforcement campaign, they're stepping up patrols, warning drivers of the consequences of breaking the law and raising awareness of the dangers, with offenders facing possible court action and a £1,000 fine. Renowned poet and broadcaster Ian Macmillan paid a visit to North Ferriby Library, hoping to inspire budding poets. It was part of the pop-up poetry initiative, which aims to encourage more people to use their local libraries.
You'll have seen the kind of things we've been doing, just making up a poem with a group of people. And to me, that's how poetry started, people sitting around making up things, but also it's what libraries can be. I'm convinced that libraries can be a cultural centre for a village, they can be a sort of social centre, and that's what this proves. And so hopefully people go out having a laugh, but also thinking about books and thinking about reading and thinking about themselves as writers.
And new Labour candidate MP Melanie On has been named one of the party's rising stars. The left-wing think tank Fabian Society has placed her in the top 15 MPs to make a difference for 2015. You can get in touch with us with any stories on 01472 315561. But until next time, goodbye.
I'm joined now by Jackie Kirkby of Grimsby Blue Cross, which is offering free chipping for pets. Jackie, thanks very much for coming in.
No worries.
Why is it so important to get your pets chipped?
It's really, really important. It's going to become legal next year in April 2016 for all dogs to have a microchip. But it's not just important for dogs, it's cats, rabbits, any other pet. It's the legal and best way to reunite them with their owners.
Because they do wander, don't they? They tend to go off on adventures, and sometimes they can't find their way home.
Especially cats, they tend to go off on a wandering, and sometimes they get lost and brought into rehoming centres and vets.
So what information is there on the chip?
It's the owner's name and address and contact telephone numbers, most importantly, and the animal's details, so age and name and things like that.
And the process is that if an animal, a stray, a lost animal, is found by the police or found by a vet or comes to your Blue Cross hospital, you just put a sort of scanner over the
That's it. Each chip has a little barcode,
yeah.
Just like when you do your shopping.
Yeah.
It goes through the scanner and it brings up a unique number. And then all the finder has to do is ring a public database, and that will bring up all the owner's details.
Okay.
So as long as those details are kept up to date, we can reunite them with the owner very, very quickly.
But you need this special scanner. You can't just take a cat to a supermarket.
Unfortunately not. That would be handy. There's no GPS and you can't take it to a supermarket. But yes, all rehoming centres, vets, the police, the council have these scanners. So wherever they were to go, they'll be easily picked up.
And what happens when the animal is actually being chipped? You bring your dog or your cat into your hospital, and what's the process for the poor beast then?
Yep, it's a quick and relatively painless procedure. It just goes in the scruff of the back of the neck, a bit like an injection. It takes a couple of seconds to do. They tend not to even notice it's been done.
They can, whenever my animals see even a packet of anything that looks like animal medicine, they run off to the end of the garden knowing perfectly well what I'm doing. But this, you just take them by surprise and they don't know
That's
anything about it.
Yeah, so you just go in the scruff of the back of the neck. So as long as somebody's giving them a bit of a fuss on the head end, they don't tend to know what we're doing.
They're easily distracted.
They
aren't
are.
they? We talked about dogs and cats, very
Yeah.
important for them. Other animals as well?
You can. Yeah, we're offering free microchipping for rabbits as well. You can do tortoises, but that's a slightly more complicated procedure.
For obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons. But yes, most animals can have a microchip, but usually the cats, dogs and rabbits are the most important ones to do.
I'm sorry, I've got to ask, how often do tortoises run away?
They don't run very quickly.
I've never seen a stray tortoise.
Believe it or not, we've had one at the Blue Cross. But yes, it isn't a most common thing to have tortoises microchip, but it can be done.
Okay. Now, people can come in and it's absolutely free.
Yes.
Is it always free or is this just a special campaign for...
It is a special campaign, but as a charity, we do it free of charge for a suggested donation. So for any Blue Cross clients, but we also have a microchipping Monday running every Monday, first Monday of the month, between 2 and 4, which is open to all members of the public, not just Blue Cross clients. So.
And if people want to avail themselves of the service, where is the Blue Cross Hospital? Where can people come?
It's based on Nelson Street, which
Grimsby.
is in Grimsby, which is just off Freeman Street. It's the big brand new building where the multi-storey car park used to be. So yeah, just pop along. It's a first come first served service. So.
How big a problem is it, stray animals in this part of the world?
Yeah, it's a big problem. All our local rehoming centres and all our Blue Cross rehoming centres are full. As a Blue Cross hospital, we tend not to take them in unless they're ill or injured, but we have a lot of people ringing up asking if we have any space to take them in. It is a big problem.
Is that normal, or is that just something that's been happening in recent years?
I think recent years with the current climate hasn't helped.
The economic climate?
The economic climate hasn't helped, but it's always been there. It's not a new thing.
One of the reasons for that, presumably, is just that there are too many dogs and too many cats, because they are, well, they're tarts, really, aren't they?
That's a good way of putting it. Yes, overpopulation, overbreeding is a massive factor. As a charity, we promote neutering to try and combat that problem. There are so many stray cats out there, and yes, overbreeding is the issue.
And so again, there can people bring their cats, especially I suppose, because they're particularly fertile, aren't they? But
Yes.
if you they can bring their animals in there to be neutered as well.
Yeah, if they're registered with us, they can come in and have their animals neutered, and we are doing free neutering, so they're more than welcome to come in. It's just another publicity to try and client education to try and get them done.
Okay, Jackie, don't go away. We'll come back in a moment and talk a little bit more about the work of the Blue Cross.
Brilliant, thank you.
There. You're watching Estuary TV News. A little later, Richard Morris will be here to summarise the local election results from last week, and Dan Kemp will bring you all the sports news. Time now to investigate further the linguistic labyrinths of Lincolnshire and Yorkshire. It's What You Say.
Spaggers.
That one I don't know.
Spaggers.
Dunno. No.
Never heard of that in my life. Spaggers.
Pardon?
Spaggers.
I haven't got a clue. It's nothing you eat, is it?
Spaggers.
Spaghetti bolognese. Oh.
I don't. I haven't got a clue.
Sparrows.
Okay.
Jackie from the Blue Cross is still with me. We were talking about the importance of chipping and perhaps the importance of neutering, but the Blue Cross does so much work beyond all that. How many Blue Cross hospitals are there?
There are 4 Blue Cross hospitals, 3 based in London, and we're the only one outside based in Grimsby. We've been here over 50 years now, so...
Why Grimsby? If there's only one outside London, why is Grimsby the
I
home?
don't know why Grimsby came about. I think it was from a legacy that was left that asked specifically to come to Grimsby. So we've been here for quite a while.
And of course, we've talked about cats and dogs, but there are all sorts of other animals. You look after anything?
We do. Yeah, we're not specialists in anything, but we will see absolutely anything. Small furries, your rabbits, guinea pigs, small furries, any exotics, so your snakes, your lizards, even down to wildlife as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Snakes and lizards? I mean, small furries, it's easy. Of course, it's all anthropomorphic and all that sort of thing,
Yeah.
but I can't find any reason to love a snake.
No, a lot of people do.
Okay.
A lot of people love their snakes and love their reptiles, and they're very passionate about them. Sometimes their care isn't always as good as the small furries and your cats and dogs because it's quite complicated.
Well, I suppose you need, again, it's a matter of education. If you've got a very exotic beast, if you happen to have a pet crocodile in the back garden, you've got to read a book about how to keep crocodiles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
You have the wild animals as well, you said. They come in.
We do, yeah. We work quite closely with the RSPCA, and sometimes if they have wild animals that are injured, they will bring them in to us to have a look at, and we take them on to just give basic veterinary care until they can go to somewhere specialised.
Well, wild animals in our towns have become almost a kind of culture in themselves, haven't they? An environment in themselves. I notice all the foxes look so healthy and sleek, and they look after each other. And have you got, is the feral fox or the town fox the most lucky beast in nature?
I think so. I think they've adapted quite well to us taking over their worlds, and they're adapting, as you say, to eating food that probably isn't quite suitable, but it seems to be going down quite well, and they're looking quite healthy for it.
Well, they're eating food that's bad for us, so presumably they're eating food. Are we getting an overweight fox problem?
I haven't seen any overweight foxes. I don't know what they're doing, but I think it may be the latest diet craze. But yeah, they're doing quite well. They're looking quite healthy.
What sort of ailments do these poor animals have when they come into you?
Oh, it can vary. We see a lot of road traffic accidents, a lot of skin problems and things like that. I say they come in quite a lot for routine neutering and basic vaccinations and things. Yeah, a varied variety of illnesses. And
some of this is because owners they're not being cruel or abusive or horrible to their beasts, they just don't know how to look after them.
No, not at all. We try and promote client education as much as we can. A lot of people take on animals without maybe necessarily going and reading a book about them. They don't realise they need neutering, vaccinations, flea and worming and basic things. So we try and help them as much as we can to make sure that the welfare of those animals are met.
Okay, as always, a dog is for life, not for Christmas, and all that sort of thing.
Definitely.
So the great important thing at the moment to remember is to bring your dogs and cats especially in and tortoises for chipping.
Yep.
Is there an email address somewhere they can, or not an email address, an internet site somewhere they can find out the details there?
Yeah, if they pop onto the Blue Cross website, which is bluecross.org.uk, we also have a Grimsby Facebook page as well, which all our information goes on there, and a Twitter account as well, so they can access us always.
You're very up to date. And the Blue Cross Hospital has how many animals do you think you have staying there at any time?
Oh, we can have up to 40 inpatients at any one time. We can see over 100 clients a day. So it's very busy for our small little hospital.
And by clients, you mean the animals? Not the owners?
The animals and the owners, yes, so within the clinic.
And how many people do you have working there looking after those beasts?
About 50 people we have. We have 14 nurses, about 7 or 8 vets, and lovely receptionists, kennel staff and cleaners that we can't do without. So yeah, we're quite busy.
And it's all run purely by donations, charitable donations. So if people want to contribute, they can go to the same details as
That's it. As I've just said, yeah, go onto the website. There's a page on there on how to donate.
Okay, excellent. So the big message is get your animals neutered and get them chipped.
Definitely.
Jackie, thank you very much. The University of Hull has recently benefited from numerous new investments in its educational facilities. The latest is a £30 million investment in student accommodation. Dave Nunn went to find out more about this and all the other recent projects.
The University of Hull is breaking the ground on an ambitious new investment to provide housing to over 500 students on its campus in an aim to improve the student experience.
Well, it's a very traditional building. It's a very interesting shape, and the apartments inside are very state-of-the-art. But from the outside, it's a very traditional brick building. So it's a traditional build for us. £30 million is an enormous investment in student housing, and of course, the way the university have chosen to do it with ourselves, it helps that capital investment circulate around the local economy, which is wonderful.
This new investment comes after the completion of a £27.4 million renovation of the university's Bryn Mawr Jones Library and the ongoing renovation of the performance venue Middleton Hall. The Vice-Chancellor believes all the investment will aid teaching and the student experience.
I think the university has an investment-driven strategy. So the strategy is to improve student experience, to up our research quality, to improve the learning and teaching, basically to build a better university. The university has always had a good student experience, but it's not something one can become complacent about. I think student demands and expectations are very high, and we need to make sure we deliver on that.
For the Student Union, it's all about building more accommodation for a growing number of students and making sure it's up to standard.
I definitely think so, definitely near a campus as well, so it gives the students the ability to study and also live in a safer environment. And I also think for first years as well, that's something when they're looking around thinking, should they live here? If it's here, they'll absolutely love it. So definitely. I think they've been excited by it. I think the big thing's communication through the next 70 weeks. I think there's definitely something. If a student's informed all the time, I think they'll definitely support the university in this. So yeah, definitely.
This view is echoed by Vice-Chancellor Professor Pistorius, who hopes students will like the new £30 million investment.
I think what they're going to find is this is really top quality student accommodation. The building itself will be fantastic. It's right on the campus next to the student union, very high quality broadband, internet free. It's going to be top notch accommodation.
As you might have noticed, there was a general election last week. We voted in a new parliament, but we also elected new local councillors. Richard Morris has the details.
I've been looking through it all. I've been finding out about what's been happening in our local council in our local area.
Good.
The councillor for South Ward, Ray Oxby, has been voted in as
this is in North East Lincolnshire Council.
Yes, has been voted in the new Labour leader of North East Lincolnshire Council. He's going to replace Chris Shaw, who obviously we may all remember towards the beginning of the year stepped down as leader. I believe he's still a councillor for the moment, but
yes,
obviously he will be stepping down. Mick Burnett has remained as deputy leader of the council. And in other news in North East Lincolnshire, Labour now has 20 seats on the council, the Conservatives 10, and UKIP have 9 seats. So it's still no overall control, but obviously there's been some shifting there.
Okay, a lot of tense negotiation going to be going on.
Indeed. And obviously this has changed quite a bit, because in 2012 Labour had 25, the Conservatives had 12, Lib Dems had 4 and UKIP had 1. So you can see how the power balance has shifted quite a bit, even just in local politics. Obviously these kinds of things tend to reflect the national picture.
So it's changing from a majority to a coalition,
indeed,
as it were.
Indeed. And of course, and in other major news just in the region, Steve Besant, who stepped down to run for the Liberal Democrat MP for the Great Grimsby constituency, lost his former council ward to Terry Walker of Labour, because obviously he had to stand down from East Marsh. So yeah, and so that's now gone to Labour. So it's been shifting around all over really.
Okay, no massive changes. But
no massive changes, but little things have changed. Hull City Council local elections saw 19 ward seats. It was a third of council, which was like North East Lincolnshire itself. Labour won 17 of those seats, and 2 of them went to the Liberal Democrats. The Drypool ward, Diana Hatcher, she made a gain for the Liberal Democrats. This was quite a surprise on the night of obviously what was
very
quite a bad
against the trend. Yes, absolutely.
And the Beverley ward had Dave Cobb hold on to his seat. He's also a Liberal Democrat. All the rest of them went to Labour in that area. It's also reported by the Hull Daily Mail that the UKIP challenge was fended off on all counts from all these councillors. Really, they came second or third in all of these places. The controlling party, of course, of Hull City Council still hasn't changed. It's still Labour, and the makeup of the council hasn't really changed since 2011. So one of those things.
That tends to happen when you're only re-electing a third of the chamber.
Yeah. So of course these kinds of things are more, as you said earlier, more subtle.
Yeah.
You will find that Hull City Council could well change. Given another 6 years, but obviously you've got to let.
It's a matter of gradual shift rather than snapshot.
Not really any changes with the West Lindsey District Council. The Conservatives have held on to their control of the council. All 37 seats were up for contest. They've held on to the vast majority of those.
Is that a surprise in West Lindsey?
It's very rural.
And rural tends to be conservative.
Yeah. I mean, East Lindsey, again, 53 seats were available to vote for in the election. The Conservatives now have 35 seats, so they're still in overall control.
Right.
Of course, East Lindsey, another very rural area.
The North Korean Communist Party hopes for such results.
Indeed. Well, you might say that. But UKIP has 8 seats on the council. The Independents have 6. Independents always do very well in East Lindsey. The Lincolnshire Independents have 3, Labour have 4, and the Lib Dems have 1. So again, reflecting the national picture, the Liberal Democrats really haven't done very well in any of the local, elections in the area.
Just to clarify, the Lincolnshire Independents are people who are independent in Lincolnshire, not people advocating the autonomous.
They're not trying to do anything. No, they're not trying to do anything like that. But they always do very well in the East Lindsey area. You don't really tend to see them in any of the other constituencies, including really the West Lindsey district. But in East Lindsey, they do very, very well because they stand on very local issues, which only obviously reflect on Lincolnshire, hence Lincolnshire Independence. But they do very well in East Lindsey. It might be worth sort of like reading up on actually why they do so well. Previously, the district had 22 Conservatives, 7 Labour, 3 UKIP, 2 Lib Dems, and 10 Independents. So obviously, it's shifted around a little bit.
Okay.
East Riding of Yorkshire Council, again, no surprise, Conservative control there, another very rural area of the country.
Very tweedy.
Indeed. 30 Conservative councillors, UKIP 2, Independents 3 and Labour 4. And that's all for the local news.
The local summary
Indeed. Shall I move on briefly onto the general election?
Well, very quickly. We've covered that quite heavily, but yes, let's just remind ourselves.
Well, Melanie on won for Grimsby with a majority of almost 5,000. This, of course, massively widened the majority from the 700 or so that Austin Mitchell fought off in 2010.
Yes, it's really to be hurtful.
Well, no, I'm just saying. I'm just stating facts to you. UKIP came third, just after the Conservative candidate. This was quite obviously interesting. This was a real UKIP target, and obviously, this massive widening of the majority. Alan Johnson retains Hull West and Hessel. Carl Turner retains Hull East with a landslide, apparently. Diana Johnson saw a huge increase in her Hull North majority, blamed, of course, on the Lib Dem support waning away.
Well, and of course, she's a very popular local MP in her own right.
Indeed. David Davis has held Houghton, Price and Howden with an increased majority.
He was too tired to talk to us, I'm afraid.
Was he?
Yes. We're going to have to stop there,
Indeed.
Richard. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Time now for all the sports news with Dan Campbell.
The Grimsby Town squad are undergoing their final few days of training ahead of the playoff final. Paul Hurst's squad take on Bristol Rovers in the showpiece event of the non-league season as the Mariners look to make it third time lucky in the playoffs. Nathan Arnold and John Paul Pittman both appeared on the bench last night, and Arnold began by reflecting on the atmosphere around the club.
It's absolutely, through the roof. But, we've got one more big game to go, so we keep our feet firmly on the ground and, look forward to what should be an exciting day. And you can only go to Wembley and win, but, they say it's the best way to go, don't they? But, we chased hard. We put a good run together near the end, but unfortunately we ran out of games. But, we're confident enough that we can do the business.
Gaston Ramirez has played his final game for Hull City. He's been ruled out of the Tigers' final 2 games of the season. The Uruguayan international missed last weekend's defeat against Burnley, having suffered a hamstring injury in training. He's made 22 appearances during a season-long loan from Southampton. Meanwhile, fellow midfielder Mohamed Diarmi has undergone surgery in France to address issues with a knee injury he suffered in December. He looks set to be out for around 3 months. It's good news for Hull Kingston Rovers Academy as their setup has been graded as good by the RFL. KR narrowly missed out on Level 1 grading due to the lack of a regular access to a 4G pitch. It sees a radical improvement for the club, who were graded as a Level 4 weak academy just 2 years ago. Elsewhere, Hull FC were once again ranked as outstanding. And finally, Kirmington's Guy Martin takes part in the North West 200 this week. The first race takes place on Thursday evening from 5:15, whilst the culmination of the festival kicks off at 9:30 on Saturday morning. That's all for the sport for now. Bye for now.
Thanks very much, Dan. That's all we have time for today. Remember to get your pets chipped. And if you have a story for us, please go to our Facebook or Twitter pages. Details on the screen. Email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 31553. Until tomorrow, good evening.
Estuary TV's weather, sponsored by Hornsby's, celebrating 100 years in buses.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Thursday and dry for most with sunny spells, especially in the north of the region. Cloudier across the south with a chance of rain. Cooler than Wednesday with an easterly breeze and a maximum temperature of 12 degrees Celsius. Friday, dry and mostly sunny, but clouding over later with some overnight rain.
Estuary TV's weather, sponsored by Hornsby's, celebrating 100 years in buses.